Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst with Money and Markets here with your marijuana market update. And today I have got a fantastic treat for everyone. It blows my mind that I even have the ability to sit down and even talk with this guy. I've spent 25 years in investigative journalism. I've interviewed a wide range of people, and this, by no stretch of the imagination, is one of my all-time honors. The person I'm going to talk to today. I'll just start. The list of accolades of this individual is longer than I have time for. I'll start off with he is a Grammy award-winning comic. Won the Grammy in 1973. And did so with his partner, but I tell you who his partner is, and it'll absolutely give it away as to who I'm talking to. So I'm going to wait. And he's done so much more. Starred, written, directed many countless movies that I've watched on numerous occasions over and over when they came out and subsequently afterwards. And I'll tell you the titles of them, and then you'll know who it is. The titles include Up in Smoke, Nice Dreams, Things Are Tough All Over, the Corsican Brothers. There's just a wide range, and he's voiced and starred in TV shows. He was in, I think, The Masked Singer. I think he was on one of the dancing shows that I don't really watch because it's not my thing. But just to kind of circle back, he did win the 1973 Grammy Award for Best Comedy Album with his partner Cheech Marin. The comedy album, I believe, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, Los Cochinos, I believe, was the name of the comedy album. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome to the Marijuana Market Update, Mr. Tommy Chong. Tommy, again, I know you're in California, and the amount of work that you do, even to this day, is amazing. And sir, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Well, thank you for that introduction. That was very good. You covered it all almost.
I try to do a little bit of research on people I talk to. I don't want to just be kind of completely open, you know.
You forgot the fact that I went to a Mr. Olympia contest one time.
I did not see that in your bio. I missed the Mr. Olympia contest. I did not see that.
I didn't enter. I just attended.
You just showed up.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. That's on my resume too.
It's on. Okay. That I didn't get. Your business manager did not get that to me. I just kind of had to do my own digging around. So Mr. Olympia attendance was not there. But yeah, I could go on and on about your accolades, but I really want to dive in and talk about why I brought you on. And that is obviously to talk about cannabis. You are say what you will about anything that's in the past, but one thing is definitely for certain. You are a marijuana activist. You support legalization. You support legalizing the usage of the cannabis plant, the flower. You're a contributor to Cannabis-Culture magazine, or at least you were. You at one point sat on the National Organization for Reform of Marijuana Laws. On its advisory board. So clearly, I think that gives you a phenomenal insight into the world of cannabis, not just abroad, but even specifically here in the U.S. And I want to talk about that first. The landscape for cannabis and cannabis sales and recreational use and even medical use has changed so much in just the last 5-10 years. But I want to go back a little further because you have that insight. Let's talk about the last 20 years of cannabis and marijuana use, and give me your perspective on how things have changed from 2001 to 2021.
Well, I went to jail in 2003 for shipping bongs across the state line. That's how illegal cannabis was. I mean, they were putting people with that sold pipes in jail and cigarette papers, cigarette papers with wires in them. Because if the cigarette paper never had wire in it, that meant it was for tobacco. But if it had a wire in it, oh my God, that was a cannabis cigarette paper, and we have to take it off the shelves and put the guy in jail. Well, since then, Dr. Sanjay Gupta showed a little child being cured of epilepsy on television, and with the use of cannabis and Charlotte's Web, to be exact. And since then, the legalization has just rolled across the country. And it's not only legal for the cannabis users like us, like the hippies and the rappers and and the rock musicians and and the Catholic priests, but it's legal for everybody, and that and when you come out of the fog of misinformation, it's like a fog. You can't see where you're going. You got to believe what you're told. Uh, and the other thing, the reason, what I finally came to grips with is that it was illegal based on race. I mean, of all things, race and greed, money. They wanted the hemp plant off the market so they could sell their plastic products, but still, and then they wanted something that they could put black people in jail over, and the cannabis was the perfect plant for it. And now all that's in the dust. Now it's turned. When you find out that it can help you sleep, I think that was the biggest plus for cannabis ever. A healthy sleep aid, that you didn't get hooked on, or that you didn't feel terrible the next day, and it's the CBD and the cannabis that did that. And so what we're looking at now, the whole world has changed, not just because of the pandemic, but even though the pandemic had the thing that everybody found out is that cannabis became essential during the pandemic. That says everything, because cigarette products weren't called essential. In fact, the prisons have stopped tobacco use in Taft, where I was anyway. So you can't even smoke tobacco, and of course you can't smoke cannabis. But the fact that the health department of America and around the world, they deemed cannabis essential. That means it's a recognized medicine. It's not just recreation, it's a medicine. And the fact that it is a medicine, it kind of escapes the greedy bureaucrats in Washington, where they want to consider they're still trying to make cannabis like a sin thing. Why they want to legalize recreation, so they can call it recreation, so they can tax the hell out of it and treat it like cigarettes and alcohol. But the truth is, it's a medicine, and as a medicine, it's going to be more popular than aspirin eventually. It's getting there. And because it helps with so many problems with people, ailments, everyday problems. Sleep is probably the biggest help. When people can say, "Oh, I had a nice night's sleep," that's so important, because so many ailments in the human body is associated with a lack of sleep. Being mental, physical, all that stuff comes because when you're sleeping, your body is recuperating, it's recovering. That's what it is. That's what sleep gives you. And that's why when a lot of times, as a lay person, I'm not a scientist, but I know that one of the attributes of the cannabis plant was the fact that it calmed the mind. It calmed the brain. And that is so important for so many activities, like golf, like art, music, writing, journalism. I mean, I know so many writers, that got hooked on alcohol, because alcohol would put them in that sort of stupor where you could just get something done, and then you just pass out somewhere. You write a great book like Hemingway would do, and then go suck on a bottle of booze until you're totally incapacitated. Cannabis allows you to write that tune, write that book, and then eat. It gives you an appetite. There's so many good things about it that, and we're just discovering them now. And so my when people say to me about all these different rules and regulations, like people are trying, like us, we're opening our own cannabis shops. Now, one of the reasons we never did it sooner was because the regulations and the mood of the government it was like too soon. They have to work, let them work all this other stuff out on other people, and then we'll wait until the dust settles, the fog clears. When the fog clears,
Exactly.
then we can see our way forward.
I want to talk about that in a little bit, but you touched on a few things. One, it's ironic now. You mentioned cigarette rolling papers and things like that. If they had wires in them, were considered for cannabis use. And the irony now that tobacco companies that have seen a pullback in their profits from tobacco sales are now actually making products to use in the cannabis industry in order to compensate for that. So that's interesting. And then you also mentioned taxing. And the one thing that I've noticed in just looking around at all the states that have it legal now, I think we're up to 18 with the addition of Virginia and New Mexico. That there is a high tax imposed on adult use cannabis sales, but the thing is that nobody seems to mind that. I mean, in Washington State, the tax rate is, I think, close to 20% it's very high, and it's high everywhere. New York is going to implement it, and I guarantee you they're going to have a high tax rate. California has a somewhat high tax rate, but people don't mind it, and I think it's because of exactly what you said, Tommy, and that is that they're not using this for nefarious purposes. Cannabis always had this stigma of being like alcohol in the 20s, where guys are just going out and ruining their lives by getting drunk and causing crime and things like that. And now that's proven to not be the case. Prohibition, really pushed that aside. And I think we're seeing the same thing with cannabis. It's kind of gone through that very similar evolution that alcohol did in the 20s. And that is that it had this stigma that it was a mind-altering drug that was going to cause you to do outlandish things, break the law, do whatever. And now that's changed to probably an even stronger case for it over alcohol. And that you're right. It's a medicine. It's a plant. It's a natural plant that is used to cure, to help, not to offset like alcohol. Alcohol offsets negative feelings or whatever for a temporary period of time. Cannabis actually helps, mitigates it. And I think it's very interesting that you bring it up.
Yeah, well, the problem with alcohol is the addiction.
Absolutely.
See the addiction thing, and you watch movies, old movies, and any problem come up, they went for the booze.
Yeah, exactly.
They pour each of here's your whiskey, here's your whiskey.
They weren't lighting up a bong or anything like that you might have brought across state lines illegally back in 2003.
No, it's real legal. And now that New Mexico is finally falling in line, but it cracks me up, these places like Texas and New Mexico, they used to be Mexico. Yeah. And it was Mexico that really ignited the whole marijuana thing because, the Mexicans, they would bring it across the border for their own personal health reasons. Right.
Yeah, they weren't buying it to sell. They were buying it to use. They were bringing it to use.
This is the herbs that they would travel with. And when they found out that they could sell it, well, wow,
why not make a few extra bucks?
Yeah. And